It's important we look at the facts. Why?
Douglas Ross is sounding pretty scared.
I believe in independence. And he clapped like a seal.
Hello and welcome again to another edition of Planet Holyrood. I'm Paul Hutcheon, the political editor of the Daily Record. Joining me this week are colleagues Douglas Dickie of the Scottish Daily Express and John Ferguson, the political editor of the Sunday Mail. So I was going to say it's been a week of controversy in Scottish politics, but when has it not been a week of controversy? There's never really a quiet day at Holyrood or Westminster. It's just one endless series of Twitter rows. So starting off with what should have been on paper a football match between Scotland and England, but it's turned into a political rammy. Scotland fans booed God Save the King when they were supposed to show a mark of respect. That was followed by Scotland and Rangers legend Ali McCoist criticising the football fans from his own country, and then the SNP MP Tommy Shepherd put the boot into McCoist. So it's turned into a sort of SNP versus McCoist row. Dougie, starting with you, I don't think I'm betraying any massive state secrets to hear to say that you're a Rangers fan. What did you make of this?
Well, I mean, the first thing to say, Paul, is I'm never going to criticise Super, apart from his managerial skills at times, which were left wanting a bit. But if I'm being honest, I found this entire thing incredibly tedious, annoying, ridiculous, pathetic. The whole thing is just a nonsense from various sides. I thought Ali's comments have been blown a little bit out of proportion. It is disrespectful to boo someone's national anthem. But putting my football fan hat on, football fans are disrespectful to the opposition. What else I've disliked is on the other hand, a lot of the SNP supporters who have leapt to the defence of the Tartan Army are the same ones who not so long ago would have put football fans in prison for saying offensive things. I just think the whole situation is loaded with hypocrisy. I think the Scotland fans should own it. It was disrespectful. It is disrespectful. They should be honest about why they're doing it. With Alex Salmon on talking about rebellious Scots to crush, when there is no, there's no such line in that song. At the same time, it's a football match, and God save the Queen, as it was. It's been booed at Scotland games. I watched some highlights were sent to me this morning of the Euro '96 tie at Wembley, and there was boos when it was played. There was then boos when Forward of Scotland was played, and nothing. I'm guessing at the time nothing was made of it. It does feel maybe Scotland was a wee bit, as a whole, was a wee bit more comfortable in its own skin back then. I think the problem is now is we've created a situation where everything needs to be seen through the prism of nationalist versus unionist. I just think.
I mean, you and I have both been at countless football matches, and you're right. Booing the opposition is just part and parcel of it. Football is all about petty geographical rivalries, isn't it? Just like, I'm not going to bang on about free speech, but isn't it just a sort of free speech issue? Sometimes speech is offensive and it's a bit rude.
Yeah, absolutely. One thing I will say though is I did write about this before the game, and the point I made is I don't care if the Scotland fans boo God Save the King. I will say the extent of it, I think, is created the story as well. I mean, I did say they'd been booing at Euro '96. It was pretty half-hearted, but I think part of the problem is the SNP obviously want to make us out. The guys at Tommy Shepherd say that we're the most welcoming country in the world, and yet a football team turns up and their national anthem's booed. But, that's going to happen in, football circles. I think there is a perception, rightly or wrongly, that the Scottish football support, the Scottish national team's football support has become a bit of a vehicle for nationalism. I've been to a Scotland game in, I think it's 7 or 8 years. And I remember going to the pub before it, and 90% of the pub must have the number 45 on the back of their Scotland shirt. I don't think you need to be a genius to work out why that was. I think that's part of it as well. I think some unionists feel unwelcome in a way that maybe doesn't happen at rugby matches, which is obviously a slightly different crowd. But on the whole, Paul, as I say, I've just found the whole thing to be really quite tedious.
You know what struck me about it? When I was listening to the boos, it kind of annoyed me because I thought this is going to inspire the England team. They're going to take heart from this. They're going to be annoyed. And I think Jude Bellingham actually made that point after the match that it put a bit of fire into their bellies. So it probably gave them a goal of a start, this booing. John, just coming to you, what did you make of Ali McCoist's comments?
Yeah, I mean, I think it was... If it was any other team whose national anthem was being booed, I think it would be, it is disrespectful. And I think if it was any other team, then it would be viewed very badly. But I think you kind of need to expect that Scotland and England have a strange relationship, given that they're in a union which isn't particularly popular with a large part of the Scottish population, and also the monarchy isn't particularly popular with a large part of the Scottish population. I think we need to remember that our own national anthem talks about fighting and dying in a war against the English monarchy. So the idea that God Save the King isn't going to be booed to some extent at a Scotland-England football match, I think, is wishful thinking. If there isn't, I think it's quite interesting that such a lot has been made of this particular incident. Most of that has been because of Ali McCoist's intervention. I think he would probably have done better to have not spoken out on this. If the significance of it is being seen as a more wider issue, I guess it's because there is a feeling that perhaps King Charles is a lot more unpopular in Scotland than his predecessor, and that perhaps that's something that people are worried about.
Maybe in the final analysis, not Scotland's finest moment. I mean,
it is disrespectful, and people need to own that. I think that's the point I'm trying to make. You need to own that, but it's a football match, and at the same time, you need to expect that some. I mean, as I say, I wasn't at the game, but judging by social media, there was much worse sung and shouted on the way to the game and in the stands. So my issue with it is a lot of Scots, and especially Scottish nationalists, have this image of the Tartan Army of being, this completely cuddly, non-offensive entity. And what we've seen is that's not always the case. But then again, it's a football game. So on the one hand, I find it really hard to get upset about it, but on the other hand, I'm finding it really hard not to get upset about the whole situation. So
I'd like to thank Ali McCoist and the SNP for giving us a golden headline. Any Daily Record headline that's got Ali McCoist and SNP in it, it's just going to absolutely blow off the charts.
That's him doing the business again. He's a wonderful man, and it's great to see that he's still helping people out.
Right, moving on. Let's now turn our attention to that great progressive hero, Fergus Ewing. It looks like Fergus, after various provocations, is going to be suspended by the SNP group next week, or at least there's going to be a vote on it. I understand that there has to be 2/3 support, and this is after him voting to get rid of the Green Minister, Lorna Slater, voting against various Scottish Government policies, and of course ripping up policy literally in the chamber. John, it's not a surprise that the SNP is going to act, is it?
No, I don't think it's surprising. I think it's going to be very interesting to see how that vote goes. Fergus Ewing, if anything, he sums up this sort of older idea of the SNP, where they were, if anything, perhaps a little bit right of centre, the old Tartan Tories kind of thing. He believes the party should be very pro-business. There is another faction now that is much more left-wing, and he's railed against that on countless occasions. The reason this is going to be very interesting is because a lot of the things that he's spoken out, I mean, in normal circumstances, you would think that suspending him would be a no-brainer. He's voted against the party. He's spoken out on numerous occasions against the leadership. But the thing about this is that all of the issues that he's spoken out against the leadership on are things that arguably are very unpopular with the public, and that there's probably a sizable faction within the SNP that would like to see a change of direction. We're obviously talking about deposit return, about fishing ban, which has now been reversed, talking about the deal with the Greens, the policy to have all homes install heat pumps. These are things that the public believe could be really problematic, and that, you know, they're things that could cost people a lot of money, and that could also throw a spanner in the works as the economy is trying to recover. And I think a lot of people have got a lot of time for the things that Fergus Ewing has been saying on these issues. So it will be really interesting. There's clearly far more people within the SNP's parliamentary group that agree with Fergus Ewing than are putting their head above the parapet at the moment. I think there's a risk that this could look like weakness on Humza Yousaf's part, that he's moving to get rid of Fergus Ewing rather than allow him to be there as a sort of a party grandee, if you like, who's not particularly pleased with the way things are going at the moment, and is big enough to express an alternative point of view.
Aye, but John, do you not think, though, that there's criticism and then there's criticism? So there should always be a space for being able to vote against a couple of policies, but you can't vote against a budget, for instance. He's not done that. That would clearly be a red line. But voting with the Tories to bring down a minister of the government, I mean, he's not elected as an individual. He's elected on a party ticket. He's supposed to be a team player. I mean, is that not just a sort of egregious breach of loyalty and discipline?
Yeah, I mean, he's crossed the line, hasn't he? Where it's almost as if he's goading the party into suspending him. It wouldn't be unreasonable to do that. But the issue for the SNP here is that he's kind of a symbol for what is a deep divide that runs through the whole party. It's not just Fergus Ewing that thinks the things that Fergus Ewing is saying at the moment.
Dougie, what's your take on this? Do you not think that people like Kate Forbes have also voted against Scottish Government policy and various things, but they kind of conducted themselves in quite a respectful way? I think what Fergus has done is done it in a very disrespectful way that is, as John said, maybe goaded the party leadership and stuck two fingers up at them. Is that not what the issue is for him?
I think so. Yeah, I mean, he's certainly he's been almost as critical of Humza Yousaf and the SNP as we are at the Scottish Express. So
surely not.
Maybe not quite, but I mean, it's such a fascinating situation. If you just indulge me, I always remember in the first Star Wars movie many years ago, there's a scene where Obi-Wan Kenobi tells Darth Vader that if you strike me down, I'll become more powerful than you can ever imagine. And it kind of strikes me that if Humza gets rid of Fergus Ewing, he's going to turn him into a martyr. I know John said that it was maybe a sign of weakness if he gets rid of him, or people might construe it as a sign of weakness if they get rid of him. It could also be a sign of weakness if he keeps him, because as you say, John, his attacks on the party have been so vicious almost that by leaving him in, does that suggest that Humza Yousaf doesn't have the bottle to take the really tough decisions? And I think it puts the leader between a real rock and a hard place. I mean, imagine being the guy who boots out Winnie Ewan's son, from the SNP. At the same time, can he let him stay in the fold and just keep on chipping away from the inside? And I think it's a bit of a win-win for Fergus Ewan. I think he's going to be in a decent place regardless of what happens, because if he gets the boot, then he's kind of freed up even more to continue his attacks on the SNP leadership. And if he stays in, then he can keep chipping away at it from the inside. So if he was going out to try and cause maximum damage, I think he's achieved that.
So just to go back to your analogy, are you saying that he is Obi-Wan Kenobi or
Obi-Wan Ewan and Darth Yusuf? So,
so
the yellow lightsaber.
Skywalker then? Who's Luke Skywalker?
Oh, who knows? Anis Sarwar, a bit boring, but and I'll keep who I think Han Solo is to myself, who was obviously the best. But
you spoke Douglas Ross, eh?
Well, maybe not. Maybe Murdo Fraser. I like a bit of Murdo.
Oh, jeez. So, John, he's only going to be suspended for a few weeks, isn't he?
Yeah. I mean, it'll be interesting to see exactly what they do to him. I think lying behind this, you've got this these two factions within the party, the Salmond faction and the Sturgeon faction, two former leaders who, are now gone, but their presence still looms large over the SNP, and I think this really does kind of illustrate that dividing line.
We'll come back to Nicola Sturgeon at the end of the programme. Next subject, Dougie, drug consumption rooms. Now, obviously, the Daily Record's had a long-standing campaign on drug deaths in Scotland. We've called for a drug consumption room. We've called for decriminalisation of drugs. This week, the Lord Advocate effectively gave the green light by saying that people in possession of drugs in a consumption room wouldn't be prosecuted. What's your response to that? And do you think this is the sort of clearest sign yet of a difference in approach on drugs between both governments, north and south of the border?
Yeah, it's always quite a complex one, this. Scotland has a horrific drugs record. Something, needs to be done about it. It remains to be seen whether drug consumption rooms are the answer. They haven't worked everywhere. There's huge question marks over. For a start, I'm also a bit wary of politicians deciding that, in some cases we can bend the law or the law can be bent. It opens up a kind of can of worms. As someone who's going to one of these drug consumption rooms, walking there with their drugs, are they committing an offence? Are the police going to be expected to arrest them or let them go? And then it kind of creates a situation where if the police officer lets them go and goes to the drug consumption room, what happens if they have an overdose? It's obviously a massive difference in opinion. I mean, we've seen the UK government opinion, although they've obviously said that, it's not going to stand in the Scottish government's way. I think people could argue, that the SNP are obviously, I think, paving the way for the decriminalisation of drugs. I think at the same time, the drug death rate in England, Wales, isn't as bad as it is in Scotland. So I think questions need to be asked as to why the SNP need more powers to do it when the powers within their grasp seem adequate. Maybe not adequate, the right word.
Isn't this the drug consumption room, Dougie? Isn't this quite a creative use of existing power? So it's the the Lord Advocate, the Crown Office, saying, look, we're in charge of prosecution policy, or something, not going to prosecute people in. So they're not, this is an example where they're not actually requiring any more powers.
No, well, yeah, absolutely. I mean, also what it does do is question, the SNP previously said that they need more powers to take steps against drugs. It turns out, obviously, that they didn't. The power to do this rested with the Lord Advocate. It's obviously just something needs to be done. Whether this is the right route remains to be seen, I guess. People are going to be right on top of it, keeping a real close eye on it. But the SNP are hanging an awful lot on it. So, I guess we need to see. I'm always wary, obviously, of making kind of political capital out of people dying. I mean, it's real people's lives here, and anything we can do to stop that is what we should do. But I don't think this is going to be the kind of magic bullet the SNP hope it is.
John, the UK government said during the week that they weren't going to block a drug consumption room. And Douglas Ross, even though he's personally not persuaded, he says he's willing to see how it works in practice, and he wants the Scottish Government to back his right to recovery bill. Do you sort of detect a slight cessation of usual hostilities between the SNP and the Tories on this issue? Just those things I mentioned. There seems to be a willingness for this to get up and running, and for to give it a shot, really.
Yeah, I mean, I suspect that Alistair Jack probably thought it would be a bridge too far to try to thwart another SNP policy, especially one that is, this really shouldn't be a sort of left or right political issue. It's just about trying to find the best way to save lives and to minimise the impact on society from addiction and drug abuse. In terms of that, just the Lord Advocate's intervention to say that she won't prosecute people over consumption rooms. It's an interesting one in that her predecessor appeared to take a different line on that, and really backed off of getting involved in this debate. He seemed to be of the view that it would be out with the Scottish Government and his powers to allow drug consumption rooms. So, it's I think everybody is now just waiting to see how this pans out. It's on the surface at the moment, it looks like it's a bit of a win for the Scottish Government and the SNP, and that it's something, and the Daily Record, and that it's something that they have campaigned for and said they believe is the right way to go. And it looks now like that we're going to see whether it is or not. That obviously could potentially be a banana skin for the government further down the line if in a couple of years drug deaths are not coming down, and we're seeing deaths in consumption rooms, and there's also seen to be or perceived to be issues for people living close to consumption rooms. Then that it could turn out to have been a bad move for the Scottish Government. But I think I would hope, and I think that we're seeing this from the Conservatives, that everybody realises that it's in everyone's interest for this policy to work. My own sense is that probably the solution lies in embracing all of the things we should be trying to help allow people who are addicted to drugs to take those drugs safely if they're going to take them anyway. We should also be working to help people stop taking drugs, and we should also be doing whatever we can do to minimise the impact that drug abuse has on wider communities. So yes, I'm sure it's not a silver bullet, and what we really will need to wait and see now is whether is a step in the right direction or not.
I should give a special mention to the Daily Record's chief reporter, Mark McGivern, who has led the way on this campaign. Mark's been brilliant from beginning to end, really, on it. Just final subject for discussion, Nicola Sturgeon. It emerged during the week that she's created a company, I think, for her outside earnings, jazzily titled Nicola Sturgeon Ltd. Dougie, is this another sign that she's headed for the exit door in terms of Holyrood?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I think a stint on Most Women awaits, maybe as a regular panellist. But I don't think there's any doubt about it. What's that?
Strictly Come Dancing? Strictly.
I'm a celeb. You know, I'd feel sorry for the bugs in the boxwear, but, you know, I was quite taken with the fact that at Company's House, she had listed her nationality as British. Alex Salmond managed to list his as Scottish for his company for the same reason. So I don't know how that might go down with her supporters, but yeah, I mean, definitely. It's obviously she's got one eye on the exit, to use the football analogy. You know, she's her contract's up in the summer, and she's just going through the motions.
John, I mean, do you think this company is going to rake in the outside earnings? And other than her book, can you imagine her being in demand given her current difficulties?
I think that she will be. I would be amazed if she hasn't already been approached, even if she doesn't admit it, by the people like Strictly Come Dancing and I'm a Celebrity. She's got a book in the pipeline. It looks like that has certainly been a six-figure deal, and I think that there will be other things in the offing. I think that Nicola Sturgeon would have been in more demand if it hadn't been for the issues that have emerged with the SNP during her leadership. But I think, if anything, those issues are the things that are probably going to make the type of activities she'll pursue through this company more likely to be where her career will be going in the short term. It was a open secret that Nicola Sturgeon would have liked to have taken some kind of role within the UN or with UNICEF or something like that. I think that that's potentially less likely as a result of the police investigation into the SNP's finances, and that perhaps the kind of things that she's more likely to be pursuing are things like books and media performances. I agree with Douglas. It was like quite, it was just quite a amusing side story to this was the fact that she's listed our nationality as British. I think our immediate reaction would be that that was probably just a drop-down menu or something like that, that there was no other choice. But it does appear that Alex Salmond and others have entered their nationality as Scottish in Company's House, and there'll be a whole bunch of cybernats reading all sorts of things into that.
Do you know what I would watch if she decided or agreed to go in the jungle with Salmond? That would be good TV.
That absolutely would be.
Personal relations between them and the tension.
Yeah, Sturgeon in the jungle and then Sturgeon in sequins. We've got all this to look forward to. So
I think
who do you think would get booted out first to the jungle, Salmond or Sturgeon?
I think Nicola. Yeah, because I just think she's a bit dull.
John?
I think if ITV haven't thought of this already, then they're probably going to be on the phone with seven-figure offers to both parties. I suspect that Alex Salmond would be more likely to take them up on the offer.
I would keep Salmond in because I just want to see him doing the trials and the tasks.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know who would get booted out first.
Right, okay, let's wrap things up. Good week, bad week. Let's start with you, John.
So I think it's been we all hope it's a good week for the thousands of people in Scotland who suffer from drug addiction and who are hopefully going to benefit from drug consumption rooms, even when they receive those opening. I think we all want to see that policy working and saving lives. I think it's been a bad week for Ali McCoist, who, I mean, after decades of really carefully avoiding any kind of criticism in his career, even through his playing career and management career at Rangers, he was the one person that Celtic fans kind of liked. And, after all that, he's now somehow managed to get himself embroiled in the terrible quagmire of the Scottish independence debate on Twitter or X. So I think he's going to regret getting involved in that.
He's a national treasure.
I like Ali. I say that as an Aberdeen fan. I think he's very, very good. Dougie, how about you? Good week, bad week?
I'll start with bad week. It's been a bad week, I think, for freedom of speech. This week, the BBC pulled some satirical cartoons after the Nats lost the plot over its depiction of Lorna Slater, a limo Lorna. I think just a sign again, this island as a whole, and I'm talking about Britain as a whole, is a really long history of sticking it to power, of taking the mickey out of those who kind of run the country. And I think again it's a really poor show from the Beeb and from those who kicked up such a stink about it. They should just let it go the way people should let it go, or they think people should let it go when they boo God Save the King. It's been a good week, I think, just very recently for Alex Cole-Hamilton, something of a forgotten man, I suppose, at Holyrood. But he seems to be the only one who's grasped the seriousness of a row that's just been brewing this morning. I'll try and keep it brief, but basically a few months ago, Humza Yousaf made an untrue comment in Parliament about Scotland's energy capacity. He was asked to correct the record, and then instead of, he did eventually correct the record, saying that he'd meant to say something else. It has now transpired after some remarkable detective work from Sam Taylor at These Islands think tank that that isn't the case. In fact, they had ordered some civil servants to try and justify his original statement and then come up with an excuse. And Alex Cole-Hamilton has called on Humza to refer himself to the independent advisor on the Scottish Ministerial Code and suggested that if he's found to have broken it, then he should resign. So I think it's good to see the Lib Dems again, pushing the Nats. And I think this is one that, we should keep an eye on in the coming hours and days.
Right, I'm going to blow the final whistle on this podcast. Thanks to John and to Dickie again for chewing the fat on Scottish politics, and I hope that you enjoyed it, and tune in next week.
It's important we look at the facts. Why?
Douglas Ross is sounding pretty scared.
I believe in independence. And he clapped like a seal.